Welcome to my podcast, Transformational Conversations, where I speak to coaches, business owners, and entrepreneurs on how challenging experiences in their life have provided huge transformational growth. This is so that we can all learn from these experiences and grow as a result. Enjoy the conversation. And I'm here today with Giles. We met on a men's retreat a few months ago, and we've been in contact quite a lot since. Giles is a mindset and habit obsessed fitness industry marketeer, and we have a hell of a lot in common when it comes to biohacking, health routines, habits, lifestyle, nutrition, vitamin supplements, all sorts of stuff. So welcome, Giles. I'm really pleased to see you and have a really interesting conversation with you today.
Yes. No, very well. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, we really clicked on the retreat, and a lot of common ground. So yeah, really excited to have a chat.
Definitely. So I have few specific routines that I do every single morning, but I think yours is very much more structured and organized and in a format that makes a lot of sense to those people who are looking to improve their lives, improve their mindset, well-being, and generally upgrade their life. So what's your kind of like morning or day routine look like as a starting point?
Yeah, so I mean, I could talk all day on this. This is really my obsession, and it has been for probably 5 or 6 years or something like that. Just really A/B testing, fine tuning. And I'd split it into a weekly and a daily. So I'll talk you through the daily, and this is pretty locked in. I'll do this pretty much every day. I'll split it into three parts really. So my morning is about setting me up for the day. There's a phrase, you can't think yourself out of a bad mood, and I think humans naturally wake up like in fight or flight sort of naturally. So it's, for me, that morning is all about your state change. So I wake up, get in sunlight as quickly as possible, grounding, so try and get outside, and I'll do some form of exercise, even if it's just a quick circuit. I train in the gym sort of 3 or 4 times a week, but I'll just do a quick circuit just to get that state change. Cold water is massive to me. We've just been talking about it off camera, but I'll always have a cold shower in the mornings, and I'll do cold plunge at my gym and do rounds of that. But at a minimum in the morning is that state change, that importance of that cold water, which has, I think, an 8-hour lasting effect on your happiness. And then I'll do my abs circuit. That's just for a bit of vanity, really, something I've always done. And then once I feel awake and energized, as you know, we've got our group call, which I think is a huge part of my day and framing my mindset. I'll jump on a call where we're sort of a community group, and we get a journaling task. Then before work, I'll do a lot of like visualization work. So I'll get on. We've got a really nice rooftop up here in my office, so we do a lot of. I'll go through my vision board, read through my kind of visions, my dreams, and then importantly, kind of visualize the next step and get that into action. My day, so daytime. Once I'm kind of set, my daytime is all about productivity and getting the most out of the day. So I've read a lot on this as well, but I'll do a lot of planning in advance. So prior to the week, on a Friday, I'll plan my whole week. Then each day I'll know the big rocks or the big tasks that I need to get on with that day. And then a big thing around this is like time blocking. So I'll block in when each task needs to happen, set boundaries around my time. So make sure I haven't got calls ideally in the morning, so I can just get cracking straight into that task as soon as I get into work. And then I know the week's going to be productive. And a big thing I was chatting to some of the guys about this week is writing my Friday wins as if they've already happened. So you've kind of visualized completion of all those key tasks, which are the next thing, and that's all kind of part of a longer term strategy. So a Gantt chart, I've got a Gantt chart for my life, a Gantt chart for work, so I know exactly what the next, because it's easy to get, especially with your personal life, it's easy to get distracted and go, I'll listen to that podcast now, or I'll read a bit of that book, and then you've started 20 books, and you know. So for me, it's like, what is the next most important task to get on with in business and in life, and I'll plan those thoroughly. And then just small things around like, so I use the Pomodoro technique, so like 25-minute blocks, 5-minute breaks, and I'm big into like frequencies. So in the morning I use the God tone, so like that visualization tone, just to like like the miracle tone. At work times, like the binary beats, so the kind of concentration tone just really locks your brain in. And then sleep, I'll use the 432 hertz. I'll come on to that in a sec, but I've got a bit of a big routine on the sleep front, as you know.
Yeah,
And then walk, as part of my day, I'll try and get as much sunlight as possible. So we're lucky here where I work, we've got a nice my hot desk in place, we've got a nice rooftop. So I'll try and work up there until 3 o'clock, and then indoors in a dark place with blue light blockers on. And I think a big part of the day is like controlling what media you consume. I don't watch any of the news, and just try and kind of limit social media use. Use a lot of the apps to like block. I've got no notifications on, all that kind of stuff. So just really try and limit what interferes with my day. And then evening, this is like the sleep bit. Sorry, this is this is a long one, but this is kind of, this is your day.
Yeah.
But yeah, the sleep bit is critical for me. But that kind of starts from the moment you wake up. So as I said, the light exposure in your eyes. As soon as you wake up, I really limit caffeine. So I actually quit caffeine for a couple of years, but I've now introduced back like 1 or 2 cups of tea a day just to like power through when work's a bit full on. But my actual sleep hygiene, I'll sleep in like, make sure my room's freezing cold, have the windows open, just have a sheet. I track with the Aura, which is a brilliant bit of kit. I've got no tech in my room, so I just literally bought an old school CD player, and somehow my partner found like a CD with the 432 hertz tone on, which I absolute miracle.
Amazing.
So just have that, and then no tech. Try and have like, I threw my TV away a couple of years ago. Just don't like, just I found my life's got a lot better without it. We try and do like sort of go to our local spa and do hot and cold. Try and do that 3 or 4 nights a week if we can, just to unwind. So you have a deliberate cut-off point, so like 8 o'clock, no more work, and then into that. And then on top of that, I do mouth taping, lavender spray on your pillow, eye mask. And a little hack I found myself that was like, you have the light and you just gradually dim it, one of those dimmer lights, and you just read like a meaningless book. So nothing that's going to stir your brain up. I'd borrow like a book that I have no interest off from my mum, and just like read about 5 pages of that, and then your brain, and try and force your eyes to stay open, and they just eventually shut. So yeah, that's a day in the life.
That is super structured and organised. I love it. I'll be perfectly honest and say that a lot of the stuff that I've done over the years, I'm not as structured and organised as that. I've got like a couple of different routines that I do in the morning, but I tend to stack them all at the same time. So I'm using a PEMF mat, I'm using a red light therapy device, and I meditate at the same time. So within 30 minutes, I've done three different things that are helping my energy levels, my mindset, collagen, relaxation, and getting the light into my eyes as well, because it's got 3 different frequencies of light in it. So yours is a hell of a lot more structured. So one of the things you said during that was like testing and fine tuning, which for me, as you probably know, like people who have been doing this a little bit, a while, understand that there's no like one thing that's going to fix everything straight away. There's no like magic bullet, and it's a case of building in certain routines, practices, methods, ideas, things into your day, and finding out exactly what works for you as an individual. So, down to the food that you eat, the water that you drink, the supplements that you take, and like you said, working on your sleep routine. I've seen your Google Sheets sleep sheet.
Yeah, the protocol. Yeah.
which is phenomenal. And there's some stuff on there that, like loads of stuff on there that I've come across and done myself, and found some of it works, some of it doesn't work. Everybody's very individual, but I love the organization and the structure of it. It's very holistic for just getting a good night's sleep. And most people aren't doing that. Most people aren't getting enough sleep. They're not getting enough good quality sleep. They're not tracking their sleep. They're not doing the things that will benefit them while they're asleep. Like you said, ventilation, sleeping with a single sheet over you to keep the body temperature a little bit lower while you're asleep. And so all these little things have a massive effect on your recovery, the quality of your sleep, and your life in general.
Yeah, 100%.
How
100%.
have you found your sleep protocol? How have you found that affects everyday, day-to-day life and recovery?
I think so. I learnt a lot of it, and I've added a lot of it. I've added bits in myself, but the core to it, I was lucky enough. I mean, in my role, I work on a couple of big fitness industry events. One of which we get the real thought leaders from across the globe onto a stage to educate fitness practitioners and gym owners and coaches and that sort of thing. And one of the real leaders in the space that I admired is Phil Lerney, who we have here. He's on one of our advisory boards, but his background was he was a high level PT to a lot of the super rich in London. I mean, you imagine people with routines that are going to be a bit messed up, so they're like celebrities, or they're in films or that kind of stuff, and he kind of noticed this common trend theme throughout them, that their circadian rhythm was really messed up. So it doesn't really matter how much what you eat, what you're training, that you're always going to feel a bit off because you've got this social jet lag kind of thing. So for me, I was already locked into all this kind of stuff. So like discovering all his sort of protocols, he's got some brilliant supplements that sit alongside it. But discovering his kind of day in the life type thing, I just absolutely gravitated towards it. And I think the big shift I noticed, so I quit drinking 4 years ago, completely 2 years ago, and I think I compare it. So I had a day the other day where I felt we stayed up really late both nights on the weekend, and usually I don't really stay up late because I don't have a reason to if I'm not out drinking, but we'd had a couple of very late nights, and I felt like that social jet lag that I'd felt a lot of the time in my 20s, and just the lack of productivity, the need for caffeine every hour to keep me going. So I think the huge shift I see is just being constantly sharp, constantly alert, and I think there's other factors that come into it, but I think just really noticing how I can just always perform close to 100% of what I want to get out of life. Whereas I think always used to roll into a Monday. It was a bit of a struggle because you'd stayed up till 2 a.m. And even if you're not drinking, that kind of says it all. Like, you're not even drinking and you've still got that same sort of hangover feeling, because a lot of it is basically jet lag. So that was a huge one for me. And almost like comparing it to an animal, because we've got, my partner's just moved in and she's got a parrot. And you can see as soon as the sun starts going down, he's in bed, he's ready for bed. He's kind of, so we're kind of the same, So if you're kind of telling your body it's morning, like it's tough for shift workers, right? Because if you get home at a certain time in the night and then you're trying to tell yourself it's bedtime, but it's broad daylight. And, I used to do a lot of bar work growing up, and trying to sleep when you get back at 4 a.m. and then trying to tell yourself it's time to wake up at 2 p.m, whatever it is, it's so tricky. So really, you've got to try and wire your day so as if you're kind of outdoors all the time, and 8 hours sunlight, 8 hours dimmed light, and 8 hours pitch black. Kind of, that's something along those lines. But it's been pivotal for me, I think.
Totally. And similar to you, I gave up alcohol. I kind of made the conscious decision when my daughter was born that I wanted to be present for her. I didn't want to be, hungover, tired, irritable dad when I was around my daughter, because I see that with, I've seen that with other people, with family members, and I didn't want to be that kind of parent with her. I wanted to be present and, happy and joyful, and for her to experience the best version of me. And so what caused, what was the tipping point for you to give up alcohol? What made you make that decision, or what caused you to make that decision?
I'd say probably gradually fell out of love with it. I mean, my dad's always been teetotal, so he's kind of always drilled it into us. So we've always seen it as a bad thing anyway. We've never seen we've always felt, even when you were doing it, you'd feel like I shouldn't be doing this type thing. So alcohol probably felt like drugs, if you know what I mean. Like, I've never tried drugs, but I think alcohol was enough of a like, I shouldn't be doing this, whereas I think most people sort of see it as something that's quite socially acceptable. But because of the way he brought us up, it was like I shouldn't be drinking. So I think I spent a lot of my 20s marketing, nightclubs, bars, restaurants, that kind of world. So I think I definitely saw both sides of it, and really saw the fun in it and the dark side of it and that kind of thing. And I think it just really probably got to a point where I'd had enough of it. That I think I was still working in the industry, and I was just gradually backdooring it and drinking tonic and pretending it was gin and all that kind of stuff. And I just thought, this isn't right. Like, this doesn't, that you should be loving. Like, I loved it for most of the time I was working in it. And I just thought, everyone else is really enjoying these perks of free drinks and drinking on a Tuesday. And I was thinking, I just want to get home and go to the gym and feel fresh for the morning. And I think I also didn't like that burning the candle feeling where everyone will be out till 2 at some big party, and then we're all expected back in the office at 9 to crack on top form, and everyone's like dropping balls, and it just, to me, it just didn't suit. I like being like sharp and on it when I'm working, and then I didn't mind a night out on a weekend, but to me, it just, that blurred line just didn't quite didn't sit with me right. So I think it was the lockdown era as well. That was kind of a big phase where I just went, right, I quit drinking, I quit social media completely, because I thought, what's the point? Like, at home, there's nothing going on, you're just pretending, you're creating fake events to drink and fake posts. There's nothing's really happening. You can't leave the house. So I just thought I deleted Instagram for 2 years and deleted and just quit drinking. And I think after you've been so long off it as well, you think, like, actually my life's so much better without both, kind of thing.
I think, like, for me, it was, I'm not going to say life changing, but it really shifted my perspective on how I could consistently perform at a high level without that. Like, I've spoken to so many people about this as well. And when I'm coaching people, I don't, tell them they have to give up alcohol. I just educate them on the downsides of the kind of the crashes and ups and downs that happens for sort of 2 or 3 days afterwards. Eventually they get back to a happy medium on a Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, and then it's back onto alcohol again, which is like, it'll affect their performance in the gym. It'll affect their mental performance. Alcohol is a depressant. It's going to make you feel depressed the next day. You might have a high on while you're drinking it, but the following days you're going to feel a little bit depressed. And
no, it's true. It's true. And I think your circles naturally start changing because you're not really up for those big nights out. So I think it takes a little while, but eventually you start doing different things, and that kind of, the temptation's not there because it's not something that's in your weekly sphere of things that, it's not like you're turning down drinks. Like, there's not many occasions now where I'm at a bar or someone saying, "Oh, why aren't you drinking?" Which is quite a big thing when you're working in it or you're out socially. Like, "Oh, why aren't you drinking?" Or, "Why aren't you?" Like, people, it's very common. A lot of people say it, and it's almost the guilt of them not drinking, or them thinking you're spoiling the fun and that kind of thing, or just genuinely like interested. Why aren't you drinking? But I think
I listened to a podcast for someone the other day, and they said, "Isn't it interesting how it's the only drug where people say, oh, why aren't you drinking alcohol? Why aren't you doing this drug?" If you were to say that about cocaine, heroin, anything else, people would be like, because it's cocaine, because it's heroin, but because it's so socially acceptable and woven into our society. Like, the amount of TV programs that we're bombarded with, I mean, not you personally, but you don't watch it anymore, but like, when you watch TV programs and stuff like that, it's like, oh, there's a celebration, drink alcohol. Oh, commiseration, I drink alcohol. Oh, there's there's something going on, let's drink alcohol. And it's drummed into us, in such a subtle way. In some,
I think I read something, or someone said that if it was launched now, it would be banned.
Yeah.
As in, like, so you wouldn't get away with it now. But like you said, it's so weaved into society, and it's almost like where smoking was very cool and acceptable, and all the ads were everywhere, and then it gradually got banned, and now you don't see anything about it. It's kind of like, you wonder if alcohol will go the same way, or it'll always be something that's seen as sort of glamorous and part of social society sort of thing. Yeah.
Well, I think like for the generation that are the younger generation that are coming through at the moment, that are so much more focused on their how they look, and them being on social media 24/7, because there's always a phone recording whatever they're doing. The younger generation aren't drinking as much alcohol because they're so concerned about how they're perceived, how they're what they look like, how what is their physiology, what is their health like. I think the younger generation are drinking a hell of a lot less than we used to as well. For me, I'm a little bit older than you, but for me as a youngster as well, it's a totally different kettle of fish now.
Yeah, and I'm still in touch with a few people and from my days in those kind of worlds, and I think it's like they're looking for better occasions. So I think where probably we used to just go to the local pub or dodgy nightclub every Friday, Saturday night, they're looking for something. So they go out way less regularly, but it'll be to like a really decent like day festival or something, maybe even something that's more photogenic, or because of the internet you hear about things you want to go to, and like you want it to be an occasion that's worth like being at and in your time. So which is why I like working in events, because it's like people are out way less. People are doing a lot more digital communication. So then they are looking to, when they do go out, it's a much bigger thing, and they're looking for something really experiential kind of thing.
Going back to something you said earlier, I want to pick up on this because it's something I've explored as well. You said you gave up caffeine for a little while. I did the same thing about 2 years ago. You gave up caffeine completely because I read somewhere that caffeine reduces testosterone levels. So I was like,
Right.
oh my God, I'm not going to drink caffeine again. And someone questioned me on it. So I went back to try and find the research on it. And technically it doesn't, but it does affect cortisol levels. So obviously when you drink caffeine, your cortisol level goes up, and then your adrenaline levels go up, and then cortisol goes up to counterbalance the adrenaline, which will then put your hormones out of balance, which can affect testosterone levels. So it doesn't directly affect testosterone, but it does. It can do, depending on how much you're taking. When I'm coaching clients, I run them through various different testing protocols, and one of them is a DNA test, which will show them and show me whether they're sensitive to caffeine, because some people are more sensitive to caffeine than others. The reason I gave up caffeine was because I'd have one cup of coffee and it'd rinse my adrenals for 3 or 4 hours, and that'd be, my hormones would be all over the place. So what caused you to kind of give up caffeine, and what sort of benefits did you see, and why have you gone back to it now at a lower threshold or lower state?
So yeah, for me, caffeine, it was just something that was part of my day. But because I'm quite an overthinker, which plays to my advantage at times, is something that it means I'm always very prepared, and I'll never just try and wing anything. I will overthink it, and which is good and bad. But in a negative, I found that caffeine really overstimulated that in a negative way, and just really triggered me. And I saw a diagram. I don't know if it's fake or real, but it said spiders on different drugs. If you Google it,
Yeah,
and it shows you spiders on weed, and they were like, all right, spiders on LSD, and then spiders on caffeine, and they were just like all over, like they were just an absolute mess. And I just related to it because I thought, when I've had that third coffee, my brain is just done. Like I'm just stressed, like I can't get in the flow state. I'm just all over the place. So I thought the only reason I'm drinking it tastes all right, but I find it a bit like how I used to find a beer, where the first bit's nice and then you're just drinking something cold and horrible, So it's not like I'm enjoying the coffee that much. I'm just using it as an enhancer to wake me up a little bit, and then all it's doing is making me more and more stressed and overstimulated. So I did cold turkey, cut it out completely, and just found my natural energy was a lot better, and I'd just be able to rely on my own brain. But then I think what I did do was reintroduce one in the afternoon, just to get me through that kind of second wind, that after lunch sort of lull kind of thing. So I have reintroduced it. And a weird thing as well is I thought I started only drinking coffee on the weekends, because I was like, I like it, but I don't want it to give me this jittery feeling. And then I was like, why am I giving myself a jittery feeling on a weekend when you should be on a day off? So I just went, right, I'm going to cut it out completely, because the pleasure I was getting from having a coffee wasn't worth and especially probably when you're having it in that small frequency, it would spike you even more than if you're having one a day kind of thing. So
yeah, totally.
That's it.
Because then, like, I've found with some coffee, if it's not clean, if it's, you know, got some sort of mycotoxins in it, if you go into doing any kind of like bulletproof coffee and looking at the caliber, the quality, and you're not drinking organic coffee and the way it's roasted and, you know, going into it in the nth detail, there's going to be some sort of level of toxins in it. And when you give up a caffeine, there'll be like, well, for me, if I'm one or two coffees over the space of a couple of days, giving it up, I'll get a caffeine hangover, like a headache for a day or so. And doing that on a regular basis is just like, why am I even doing this, you know?
Yeah.
So yeah, totally with you on that. So in the introduction, or when you were talking about your daily routine and your daily structure, you were talking about frequency quite a lot in there, which I've done a fair bit of work on frequency myself and understand the different ranges of frequency. So alpha wave, you know, delta wave virus sleep, theta for, you know, concentration and focused work. So how did you come to discover, because it's not a well-known practice, especially the binaural beats side of things, which is, I love that you have slightly different tones in each ear, and the difference between it causes your brain to focus on that particular frequency, which is like, when you think about it, how did someone ever discover that?
Yeah, it's crazy.
Like, how did you come across the frequency work and solfeggio tones, which you were talking about, 432 hertz, I think, before you go to sleep?
I just became a real kind of like productivity hacker. How can I hack every minute of my day? How can I get the most out of my day? And I think it's the Pomodoro and those kind of things are becoming a bit more common in terms of what my colleagues call whale noises, putting my whale noises in. But I think it's, I think that was probably where it started, and that the instant wow factor of that, and just realizing how quickly you get into the zone, and you're just like, you don't realize how quickly time's passing and you're just getting so much done. So I think testing that and seeing the impact that had I think that's where I started exploring different frequencies and different tones. And then I think I only really discovered the God tone, or the miracle tone, after the Crete retreat. I think Pete's quite big into those kind of like framing moments with the right tones to get you kind of elevate your belief in yourself, or get you thinking deeper and that kind of thing. So and the somatics work we did there and that kind of stuff is just mind-blowing. So the whole spiritual side is very new to me and something that I'm really exploring. But the productivity stuff I've been doing for years and just trying to optimize fully. So I think the spiritual side and those kind of tones are very new to me, but I think I can instantly see a shift in your mood or in your self-belief or those kind of things. You just elevate your frequency, literally, from fear or nerves straight up to self-belief and confidence and that kind of thing.
Exactly. It just takes you out of that state of, you know, whatever you're feeling. It like you said, elevates your mindset, it elevates your thoughts, it elevates your consciousness. It does everything all at the same time, just by listening to a particular frequency or tone.
And even on that note is, back to the media point and what you consume, and even noticing, like, well, cutting out TV completely, but like if noticing, like, watching fear stuff before you go to bed, scaremongery, or like, alarming news about things going on the other side of the world or whatever it is, like just before you go to bed, it's going to alarm you. And a lot of those shows or movies have an element of horror, or even if it's just a bit of crime or something like that, it's just not going to get you in the mood to sleep. So I like to spend my evenings in, like, ideally in the spa if we get time, but if not, just like stretching and putting some nice frequency, even nice jazz on or whatever it is, just to like relax, and dimmed lights and that kind of thing. So you're getting yourself in a state of like, I'm ready for bed, rather than sat there glued to like some flashy lights and some car chases and stuff like that.
Like, just to reinforce what you have just said, I had a client come to see me about 7 or 8 years ago, and she was struggling with some bladder issues, like bladder infection issues and sort of cystitis type stuff. And we were doing lots of work around nutrition and vitamins and supplements and stuff like that. And something came up where I started to ask her what kind of media she was consuming. And she was watching a lot of like horror films.
Right.
So that fear-induced horror that she was watching, where she was, her as an individual was quite open to suggestive, media and things that she come into contact with, it was really affecting her physiology. She stopped watching the horror and all of her symptoms went away within the space of a week. It was like she came back to me and said, "This is amazing. I've stopped watching all these horror films and all my symptoms have gone away." And it's for some people, not everybody's the same, but most people will be taking that stuff on an unconscious level and then replaying it back to them. So like all these people that are, playing video games with, first person shoot 'em up video games where they're killing other people all the time, their mindset is going to be focused on some kind of like battle or fight or survival or something like that most of the time, because their mind is playing it back to them. And that's why watching the news and watching things that are so negative for our consciousness is a really terrible way of spending our time or, experiencing the world. Why do we need to be filling our life with negativity, violence, fear, death, and all those sorts of...
Right. Because your mind's not telling the difference between it being your real life and not, sort of thing. So your nervous system's sort of on red alert as if you're about to be shot. Someone's come around the corner to shoot you, but it's just a game or a movie or whatever it is.
Yes, exactly. Our minds don't know the difference between what we see, what we see as real and what we feel as real. So if we're seeing a lot of violence and, people being shot and killed on video games or on the news or whatever else, then our mind's going to be in a constant state of high alert, fear, nervousness or angst or anxiety or, whatever that is. So yeah, it's a really important point you made there. So you said that things have changed a little bit for you since you was in Crete, where we met on the men's retreat. What was the biggest, most significant takeaway that you had from that retreat? Because we covered quite a lot on the retreat. There was a lot of incredibly deep work with some of the stuff that we were doing, a lot of psychological healing and forgiveness and all sorts of stuff. So what was the biggest takeaway for you?
I'd say it's the first time I've had that level of two-way mentorship. I've always invested in mentorship, but it's generally mentorship and coaching, but it's always been in health or my career very specifically, which doesn't really get too deep. It's just like, do this number of weights, eat this, or here's the path, read these books, study this thing, get better at this, so it's always been in those areas. So I think it's the first time I've had I guess emotional mentorship on relationships and in your mental well-being and that kind of thing, and making that all around growth. And I think the biggest learning for me is how disconnected I was with the spiritual side, and this concept of the spiritual warrior, which really stuck with me, because I think my warrior is really strong because I just get things done all the time, but I kind of have a lack of maybe compassion for myself, and you beat yourself up a lot. So sometimes it's slowing down to speed up, and the change in me is kind of layering in some habits that account for those kind of areas of my life as well. So I do a lot of on top of my daily routines, I do a lot of like weekly things, and a big thing for me is kind of my Friday review like what the objectives were of the week, how did I get on, celebrate the wins. And a big part of those now is kind of looking into that spiritual side, making sure I'm doing my daily practices like my meditation and sharing struggles and like those kind of things as well. And I think having been kind of a set of personal goals as well as business goals that you were wanting to get done that week, and journaling a lot more and understanding, I think something that Yassine talks a lot about is kind of understanding what it is you want from your life. So I've started a daily practice of just like what excites me and what triggers me. So if something like makes me feel a certain way, or like makes me feel insecure, or in a negative way, writing that down and kind of digging into why that comes up for me. And then in the flip side of that, if I see something and it excites me, or a conversation excites me, it's like I probably want more of that in my life. So it's like journaling on that as well. So it's like a daily practice. And I think that ties a lot into understanding planning process, because for me, it's like action is the main thing, as Yassine always says, you know, is taking the action is the most important thing. So having that plan, but having a much more emotional and a real purpose drawn to what it is you're working towards, and it's kind of your North Star. That kind of thing really stuck with me. And I think probably actually the biggest thing is this kind of working towards having your statue. So what would your statue be? What is your like godlike goal in life? Because you can't just have on your gravestone like worked really hard or what, you know. You know, it's kind of having seeing a bigger picture for yourself of like what am I put on this world to do, kind of thing. Yeah, and thinking deeply around that. And it doesn't have to be something that completely changes the world, but it's like, what is my calling? What is the thing that lights me up, and that kind of stuff. So I think constant work around that, understanding that, talking about it with other like-minded guys like yourself to kind of bounce things around and understand journeys that other guys are on. And that's kind of been real like life-changing, I'd say, for me, like really, really different. And obviously it resulted in me getting my first tattoo as well off the back of the retreat. Really good work I'd done around my sister and her illness, because I've never quite dealt with it. This sums up exactly what I was saying, but because I'm so action-based, I just found 50 solutions to her illness. And can she have care? Can she have this medication? Can she speak to this person? But I never actually let myself grieve the fact that she's pretty much, you know, she's got severe epilepsy to the point where it feels probably like it's the same feeling as my partner's going through with her nan with dementia, where the person you once knew is not there anymore. So it's almost a lot of things like that for me came up, where it's like, wow, that's a real realization, and being able to listen to yourself more rather than just constantly like, right, what can I do next? What action can I take? What get through my to-do list type thing, to actually be like, right, be a bit more compassionate and understand how I'm feeling and let the feelings come out, sit in the feelings, find the action that relates to the feelings, not just finding more actions, if you know what I mean. So yeah, a lot came out of it. It was crazy. And I think having that amount of time just solely focused on working on yourself as well, rather than trying to fit in 20 minutes in the morning or block off a Sunday morning to do a bit of reading or whatever. It's literally like 5 full days just going, right, understand yourself, set some goals. That for me was real life-changing. And then obviously I did the more recent one with Pete in London, which again got a lot from, and especially again the somatics, the spiritual side of it, because the planning side is my kind of bread and butter, and the link between the two I find crazy as well, because you think, oh yeah, spiritual stuff, bit woo-woo, whatever, but actually the breakthroughs you get business wise or ideas wise or life wise from doing the spiritual stuff is really like crazy, I think.
Sometimes when people say spirituality or spiritual stuff, they immediately switch off and think that you're talking about religion or some kind of something that's woo-woo, or something that most people don't even consider is actually a big part of our lives. I think a lot of thought leaders and people that have done a lot of work on themselves and have evolved their consciousness to a particular level through intelligence only can only get to a certain point. There needs to be an element of spirituality or otherworldliness that you can't really put an experience of until you start doing like proper deep personal development, where you're starting to understand yourself. And for me, like, spirituality is just learning more about how we as emotional beings experience this world. You know, what makes me who I am, what makes me happy, what makes me sad, what makes me, you know, uncomfortable. To see you go through some of the things that you went through on that retreat with regards to your sister, and some of the stuff that you've explained afterwards as well. Yes, it is incredibly difficult, but it's also, I think it's really empowering as well to be able to be able to experience those feelings and not just like, you know, push away, say I'm just gonna resist that or push it away. I wanna feel it so that it doesn't control me anymore, so that it doesn't keep me at a particular level in my life. It's not like under the surface. It's just something that's happened. I'm able to move forward comfortably. I can express, whatever emotions and whatever feelings come up around that, that need to be expressed. And like you said, it sounds as though you going through that experience has given you the ability to then work proactively to find solutions for things that will help her going forwards.
Exactly. And I think the crazy thing that I found with it is I didn't go into it with any agenda. Like, I didn't even know that was bothering me or that it lived in my head or anything like that. I just obviously it sort of reached a point in 2017 where it had all got a lot worse, and it's affected my stomach, kind of cramps and pains and things like that's sort of associated with allergies. But actually it turns out it's kind of like a stress related thing due to that almost mourning type grieving type thing. But yeah, crazily enough, it wasn't something that I thought, I didn't go on it and think I'm going to mention this and this is kind of a problem that's bugging me. But actually, like, the fact that it came up was really, strange. But as you say, it's kind of, if you're quite an action-based person, you're not using it as a crutch to say, I can't move forward with my life because of this thing. It's kind of, is understanding that you have a flaw. And there's an analogy that I came up with my coach that he kind of came up with, which was that, like, everyone's had a life, right? So I was born in 1989. He kind of referenced it like, if you're a 1989 Porsche, you've just bought a 1989 Porsche, there's gonna be some, dents and bits and, say like the suspension, you can't go around the corners too hard on that side and things like that. Like, you've lived a life and you've had some experiences, and some of it's stuck with you, whether it's your parents, whether it's a boss when you were young, or whatever it is. Like, there's going to be things that rattled you, and my sister being one of those big things, because we grew up very, very close, and then seeing her decline is really tough. So it's kind of understanding that is a part of you, using it, not using, I don't know what the word is, but like kind of being self-aware, isn't it? Understanding that, and not letting that subconsciously control any decisions that you make because you want to play it safe, or you're that kind of thing. So it was, hugely insightful that it came up, and then just trying to unpack it a bit more, and what it means for me as a person, kind of thing.
I love the analogy.
Yeah, it's stuck with me.
1981 Porsche with a few things. Yeah, it's great.
I've got it as my screensaver now on my laptop. I've got a nice old Porsche, and it just reminds you, because it's like it kind of makes you think, like, even if you've got, and why I like the analogy is because it's like, even if you've got flaws or you've got things that are you might consider a weakness, you've still got a lot of value in yourself. Do you know what I mean? You just need to be more sensitive around things, but it's still, you're still a vintage classic or whatever. So it's, that's what I quite like the analogy, because it gives you confidence, and it makes you think, anyone that's aged is going to have something that's not perfect, or not, that needs and he kind of also said, like, just focus on your strengths. Like, it's not always a case of like really need to deal with all these flaws that I've got. It's actually just like, right, the Porsche is really good on the straight, so just focus on that, or whatever it is. It's just a way of being like, right, just lean into the bits that really are your strengths and where you kind of excel, and then just steer clear of the bits that trigger you or don't make you feel your best self, kind of thing.
Totally. And if you look at all of the people who are like some of the biggest transformational or the biggest coaches in the world, like Tony Robbins, they all grew up with like big challenges in their life. And it's these challenges that force us to grow and evolve and become better and look at different ways of solving, or different and creative ways of solving particular problems. It gives us the ability to think differently to other people who have just had an easy life, where they go through life, they've never really had any challenges, nothing's really ever caused them any problems, and they just kind of sail through life and
True.
yeah.
True. And I think a lot of people who've had like sort of near death things themselves as well, isn't it? I think when you see, because Yassine talks a lot about this kind of urgency to thinking, I've got another, I could do it next year, or I could do it. But I think if you've had a near death experience, or maybe similarly if you've lost a relative young or that kind of thing, you do see that life is finite and it doesn't last forever. And I'm a big fan of that 4,000 Weeks, the book. I've just read it for the second time. I'm going to see him live in September, and that was like, I really, really resonate with a lot of things he had to say, in that kind of it's almost like an anti-productivity book, because he became a productivity hacker, and realizing that you can't out hack your day. You can't out hack your life. You're never going to get this promised land of like, I've finished everything type thing. So that's where for me now, this like, my Friday planning is very much about, okay, what is the bigger picture? What's the dream life? How can I get slightly closer to that next week? And actually living it now. There is no tomorrow. There's no like something different that's coming around the corner. Like, kind of, this is it. And you can obviously be excited about the end goal and have something in mind that you're working towards. But I think you can't just write off today as if tomorrow's coming, kind of thing, because if you died tomorrow, you've kind of, that promised land is never coming, if you know what I mean. So that really, really resonated with me. And kind of my partner and I, kind of, when we moved in together, we following the advice of Akhtar, we made kind of like a rule book of like, these are our kind of, like, interviewed each other in a kind of, this is how I like to live way, but also in a kind of, what are the things we love about each other and what are the things we like to regularly do together. So as part of my habits, I've got kind of like, here are the 5 or 6 things that if we've had a good week, we've done all these things together, kind of thing. So it's kind of like an unwritten guide of like, here's how we both like to live and here's how we both like to spend quality time. And that's partly why we've just got the camper, because both of us just like want to see the world a bit more and see, you can go around Europe in it, we can be a bit more spontaneous, go wherever you want in it, stay somewhere overnight. And it's just like living closer to your life. Like, you can't go on holiday every weekend, but you could if you have an old van with a few beds in the back. And it's just kind of, it's things like that, just constantly fine tuning and tweaking and reviewing. And I use that kind of life wheel to say, where am I out of whack? Because most people will put so much focus on career, which I do, but equally, like, your health and your relationships need to be scored. So that's what I like. I'm really into it, but I like number, make it very visual, so I can see, right, that area's dropped off this week. What's the number one habit that I need to relock that back in? Am I spending enough time with friends? Am I, whatever it is, like, and making those non-negotiables. Like, I go and see my family once a week as a non-negotiable. So you never get to a point where I have regrets and go, oh shit, I wish I'd have done a bit more of that, kind of thing. So it's that bigger picture kind of awareness is key, especially when you work out the North Star and what that looks like and how far off that you are, kind of thing.
Totally. And I haven't read that book, but I will pick it up at some point. But I personally came to a point where I was like, I just want to live. Like, a lot of people put off their happiness until they've retired. They work for 30 or 40 years and then they'll retire, or 15 years, whatever it is. Then they'll retire, not be strong enough or fit enough or healthy enough to enjoy all of the maybe money that they've accumulated or the things that they've put off. I started, I think it's 4 years ago, I started singing lessons. 2 years ago, I started doing Brazilian Jiu-Jitsu. I just, like, for me, it's picking up life skills and doing the things that bring me joy, bring me happiness. And it sounds like you're doing the same, both in your relationships and in your personal life and at work as well. You're hitting all of, all the key areas. It sounds like a great practice as well. I love that.
Making sure you fill in your cup, isn't it? It's making sure you're doing the things that really resonate. And I like that, like learning new skills. It's really cool. Like, my brother's he's just started learning surfing and he's just found this love for Cornwall. He's just getting down there as much as he can. And I think it's just finding the things. And he just said last week, something I really liked, is he booked a week off and just drove and didn't book anywhere to stay, but just see where things resonate, because you just go, oh, that looks interesting, I'll go to that. Or, he ends up doing a retreat and, doing some yoga on the beach and just testing stuff out. But like, it's having the time and capacity to just go with the flow, isn't it, a bit, and see what, like you said, try singing lessons, try jiu-jitsu, see what sticks and see what you like, or things you've always wanted to do and things like that. And it just makes your life a bit more exciting. It gives you talking points as well, if anything. It just gives you things that you can resonate with people, rather than just being kind of one dimensional, which I think is the problem with TV a lot of the time. Like you can talk to someone about football, or you can talk to someone about the latest Netflix show, but like in a year's time, none of that information matters, and it's it feels a bit. That's why I'm glad I cut that stuff out, because it just feels very not as fulfilling at all.
Yeah, it's very surface level, isn't it? And it's harking back to what you said earlier about someone puts something on your gravestone. They're not going to say, "Oh, I completed Netflix," or
yeah.
I support this football team really well. Like anyone's going to give a shit about that.
No, that's very true. That's very true.
So going back to the name of the podcast, which is Transformational Conversations, can you talk about your biggest transformation in your life, in your experience, and what that's kind of brought to you, how it made you feel, and what you've kind of gained from the experience?
I would say the pivotal moment for me, which I always look back on, was 2019. So I was probably at the peak of my career in hospitality marketing. I'd been in it about 10 years, and I was just at that cusp of like getting offered the big jobs or applying for the big roles kind of thing. I'd always spent my career trying to work under really good bosses to soak up as much as possible. So I was just kind of probably just about getting to that point, but I was also equally getting to the point where I knew it wasn't quite right for me. Like I was saying, kind of like the drinking element and that was just not resonating anymore. So I made the big step to step out of the industry without anything to go to, and was just like, right, I'm just gonna kind of take some time out. And then strangely enough, about a month later, the lockdowns all kicked in, and just it really meant I had a lot of time just to really focus on myself, which at the time absolutely scared the life out of me, because I was like, right, I've got no income and no, but actually it was a real transformational point, because I'd started my career in the fitness industry and marketing, and I knew that was kind of my calling to get back into it. And it was a really good opportunity, because a lot of the C-suite, a lot of the big dogs were off work, furloughed, with nothing to do. All the facilities were shut. No one was going to buy anything. So I was able to get on a lot of calls with a lot of people who'd probably otherwise completely blank a stranger. And I wasn't asking for anything. I was just literally saying, like, I'd love to hear your thoughts, your expertise on, me getting back into this industry and what's going on at the moment and that sort of stuff. And I just spent hours kind of walking, listening to podcasts, working on myself. And this is where I kind of built these routines, because you just had complete control over your day. I've spoken to quite a lot of people on this. People either reverted to a child in that era where you could just play video games and wake up whenever you wanted and wear your pajamas all day or whatever, or you kind of went, right, I've got it's sink or swim, kind of really lock things in and dial things up. And I think I went that way, but it definitely felt like a complete kind of rebuild after 10 years of kind of doing a certain thing and getting up crazy early, commuting into London and just staying up really late, doing big nights out, and just completely like wiping all that clean and just kind of being like, right, what am I all about? First time I'd ever done sort of vision board work and stuff like that, and I realized on the retreat that I'd actually achieved what I'd set out to do then, in that I'd be in a big senior position in the industry, and a big thing for me is always kind of what the phrase sort of standing on the shoulders of giants. So being able to put the people with the real thought leadership knowledge, work with those people and just kind of understand, give them the platform kind of thing, not me being the platform, but them being the experts kind of thing. And like realizing that all the people on the podcast I've been studying, and while I was walking through the woods for hours on end, I just put a load of them on the stage at our most recent event. So that was a real kind of sort of like a pinch me moment, that in the flow of it you don't realize that's all happening, but you're like, wow, that's a real cool like full circle moment. And then now coming up to our next event is getting a lot of the global ones, so I'm flying in some of the guys from the States who I listened to in that era as well. So again, it's another kind of evolution from that. So I think that kind of that was probably my biggest, definitely my biggest kind of transformation moment. What Pete refers to as that kind of dark night of the soul moment, where it's kind of a whole reset and some bad, some good feelings, and a lot of different emotions going around. But like really just locking in, like digging deep, and just putting in the daily work. And I did my masters in that time as well, so obviously had a bit of time off. One of the people I reached out to was a real legend, and she just started her own agency, so she took me on freelance as a consultant. So it's the first time working for myself as well. So that was really cool. So I think it was just a real phase of excitement and change, and like understanding yourself better and things like that, and a lot of self-development work. And I think interestingly, that's kind of what I was referring to on the Crete retreat. Is there's a lot of when you do a lot of self-development or like reading, mastery, all that kind of stuff, it's all very one way. And so I'd learned all this stuff, I'd stacked on all these routines and habits and things like that, but you don't understand the blind spots and what's going on in your shadow. So I think that's the interesting bit for me now, is kind of uncovering what's the other side of that, because you've kind of bulletproofed this daily routine that gets you, it makes you feel great and you get a lot done and you're moving towards your goals. But actually the next phase, which I see as probably the next big transformation for me, if you're looking at that era being like becoming from that person to that person, the next probably like the 2.0 transformation, which I see coming, is this kind of understanding that spiritual side of myself and really embracing that. And I've been chatting to Danny a lot around that, and kind of because I think he's really locked in with that stuff, and I find we had some really good chats on the retreat. And it excites me because it's kind of a whole new thing that I probably always thought was a bit bullshit, because every time I tried to meditate, it just like I just find I was trying to hack it, like, oh, okay, I'll do 10 minutes, but actually I'll do 7 minutes because then I can get to work earlier. And it's just stupid. It's like it's not even a thing. And then actually when you do a long like hour and a half meditation or something ridiculous, like you just get transported to somewhere completely different. So it's like realizing how powerful that stuff is and how much I enjoy it and how much it uncovers for me. So I think that would be kind of the next transformation for me. It's already starting with all that kind of stuff.
It sounds as though when you gave up your job and started, you were forced into a position where you had to learn self-reliance. You had to rely on your own skills, abilities, and develop whatever routines and habits as well around that help you to be more, self-reliant, essentially. So I think that's a really powerful process for people to go through, especially for men as well, to learn to become independent, self-driven, and self-reliant is a big part of coaching and being coached, and developing yourself as a man. The shadow work that you're talking about and becoming Giles 2.0, which I love. Shadow work is undervalued. There's so much of our own character traits, things that we're unaware of, that we're constantly doing all the time, that hold us in a particular place. As soon as we start to realize that, the shadow aspects, or the things that we're unaware of that are, holding us back, as soon as you start to welcome, seeing those and becoming aware of those, that's when you start to go to 2.0, 3.0 and onwards. So it's a huge part of growth and development, and being courageous enough to want to go there as well, because sometimes it can be a little bit for me, when I've done work like that in the past, I would see my own personality traits and go, oh God, did I really say that? Or did I really used to do that? Or it's a little bit, it's maybe a little bit of shame around the way I treated people, or the way that you say things, or, the things that you did in your daily life. So, I think it's a courageous thing to do, to step into and say, improve myself no matter what, whatever the cost, whatever it takes, I'm going to step forward with bravery, courage, and take myself to the next level and grow and evolve, become Giles 5.5.
No, certainly. I really think so. I think it's like it's once you're aware of it, you can't become unaware of it, kind of thing. It's one of those things, isn't it? It's like as soon as you kind of like, right, I just did that action because of this thing, and you kind of know exactly what you've done wrong. And it's fascinating, and there's so much to unpack for it. It's so new to me, but I think it's it's definitely something I am absolutely fascinated by, and can see it can bring me so much value, kind of thing.
Excellent. Well, we have to wrap it up. I've absolutely loved speaking to you and hearing all about your routines, your habits, all the work that you've done since the retreat. And obviously it's been phenomenal speaking to you, learning more about you and understanding, what drives you, what excites you, what gives you satisfaction in your day-to-day life. So yeah, thank you so much for being with me for the last hour or so.
No, it's been an absolute pleasure. Yeah, really enjoyed it. Really enjoyed it.
Thank you so much. I'd love to have you back on at some point as well, and we could talk more in depth about what Giles 3.0 is doing in a few months' time.
Yeah, brilliant.
Awesome.
Brilliant. Sounds good.
Thank you so much.
Top man.